This is All the Things with Michelle Wolfe.
Okay, so today I am joined with Abigail Wild. She is a publisher, author, owner of Wild Ink Publishing. Do you want to introduce yourself and kind of give like a summary of all the things you have going on?
Sure, and thank you for having me today, for real. Excited about it.
I'm so
So yeah,
excited.
yeah, it'll be good. So, yes, I run Wild Ink Publishing. I started by writing my first two novels, and I did so within an MFA program, which is a Master's of Fine Arts in Creative Writing, where I also learned not only creative writing, but also publishing, and I learned the business aspect of publishing, which is how I went on to build Wild Ink with all of that knowledge. But my first two books are The Art of Drowning and More Than One Way to Breathe. And what I do when I write is I take moments from life, moments from my life, moments from like friends' lives, something like that, and build kind of a healing story from it. Um, no, of course, I write young adult books, so I write for teens. And so there's all the drama and there's all the intrigue and the normal things that you would find in a normal YA book that girls would read. But really, what it really does is shines a light on social topics that maybe are making a teenager feel alone. Okay, and I'm letting them know through the writing that they are not alone. And in doing so, I am actually taking a moment to heal myself because my first book was a fictionalized version of my son's head injury. Okay, but he didn't want it to be about him, so I made it about a girl. And the main character, Larkin, was born, and she became like a daughter to me, even though she was fictitious. She felt just as real to me.
Isn't it amazing
And
that because where we connected on this is that writing is cathartic because it is
yeah,
that for both of us. And that you
yes.
can do this process and how real it is for you as you're creating it, you
Oh,
know?
it's 100%
Yeah.
real. You interact with them in your brains, and sometimes when you're writing, they start to do things that you wouldn't expect them to do, and it's like, "But that's not in my outline," and they are taking the wheel, and I also teach creative writing at 2 different colleges, and what I always tell my students is, "No, you're in control. Your characters are not in control. You are in control." But the reality is that when I'm writing, my characters are in control.
There's something, what's
So,
the saying? It's like the character comes to life,
the character and
because
the character has
you're
mhm,
the conduit, right? Like it's
yeah,
happening through you. That yeah.
yes, yes, no, absolutely 100%. The character has to feel so completely real to you that they feel like a real person before you can convey that to a reader.
Mhm.
If the character doesn't feel real to you, they're not gonna come off as real to the character. So
Yeah.
it's important that, like, you flesh out you need to spend time before writing a novel, fleshing out your characters so spectacularly that they come alive, you know?
Mhm.
And a lot of authors, it's not just me, but a lot of authors have said, like, after they are finished with a book, there's a small mourning period
Yes, I've
because
heard that.
they're no longer there. Like, yes, it's depressing
And
because
as
they're
a reader too, I mean, I've read books where, you do get attached to a character and you really, really are crying and grieving them, or even like a book series, right? And you get to the end of it and you're like grieving the loss of that experience now. It's very
yes,
real.
and that's why, like, after reading a series, you usually need some time before you go into another series. Like, you just
Mhm.
can't
Mhm.
jump right away. I know people do, but I can't. I need to spend some time with my feelings, you know?
Yeah. Oh, I
So
love
and
how you
that
said
is
that.
actually what I do. Yeah. I actually guide authors through that process, when they're writing books, and that's kind of like my focus with Wild Ink is promoting debut authors, helping debut authors through their publishing path in the hopes that they get bigger than me and, they get accepted by Macmillan and by Simon& and Schuster and Hachette. They go beyond me, and that is my goal. My goal is to be the open door that they can nudge in their way into the publishing industry.
To lift people
And with
up.
that, hmm?
To lift people up.
lift people up. Yeah, exactly. Because it is so hard. There are so many gatekeepers, proposed gatekeepers,
Mhm.
who basically are saying, no, 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 no. No, your book's not good enough. No, this, no, that. And I try my best. Now, I can only publish so many books a year, but when I do, it's always something like, okay, well, I want to help you get forward, go forward. Yeah, so that's what I do. But also, the large majority of my authors, something within them, something in their life, something in their heart, something in their soul propelled them to writing what they wrote. And with very it's you one author can take you could have a room full of authors who have faced the same sort of circumstance in their lives, wanna write poetry, wanna write fantasy, wanna write YA, all the different genres, but they're all kind of dealing with that one issue that's in their heart, and they do it. That's what's creative
Well,
creativity is just so amazing because
yeah,
it allows you to do that.
we
Mhm.
talked about this, like it's a highly cathartic process for me. It's almost a compulsion. And there was a time in my life where I was like, why do I feel like I kind of shame myself, like why do I feel like I need to like share all this stuff? But like for me, it's in the sharing, and then the reflection that happens from people, and I see myself in other people's stories. So when people will
Yes.
message me privately and be like, I want you to know, like, that really touched me what you said. And I'm like, that one person. I mean, I've had people message me and tell me that they thought today was going to be their last day, and they saw
Yeah.
themselves in my words. And I'm like, this is why I do this,
I
that it
That's
matters.
why. Yeah, so that's what, I could sell, thousands upon thousands of books. But the moment when I knew it was all worth it had nothing to do with money. It was when it was a 14-year-old who was battling depression, battling eating disorders, which is a theme in one of my books,
Mhm.
came to me and said, this is the first time that I felt seen,
Yeah.
you know? And it's like, this is why I do this. It's not
Yeah.
anything. This moment, just you, is the exact reason why I do this. Because I think that still, I mean, I think society is coming along and doing a lot better than when we were children, dealing with mental illness and
I do
things like
too.
that, different social issues, but it's still not great. And so there's a lot of people who are afraid to speak up for whatever reason. And so if they can see themselves in a character, they feel heard. And that can be the difference between life and death.
And
It's a
we talked
really
about the power of, like, these sort of fantasy or fiction being a safe place to do that, to not only as a reader see yourself in a character and allow yourself to then process something that you might have had trouble with, but also as the person writing it, like
yeah.
allowing yourself to process traumatic experiences from your life in a safe way, where you can
Yes,
kind
exactly.
of be a little detached or removed from the character, and
Yeah.
writing yourself a different ending.
Yes.
Like how
Yes, absolutely. And the other thing that you have to think of is like because you are removed, because it is like a fictional account of sort of what you went through, your main character is not exactly
Mhm.
and it's happening to this main character. The situation is not exactly the same, but the themes are the same. And you can kind of experience ways that others support the character within the novel. You can experience the different ways that the character could handle the situation. Through the writing, you're thinking, okay, but if they do this, this is going to happen. If they do this, this is going to happen. That kind of trajectory helps you to see maybe if I try that in my life, maybe if I just speak to one person the way that this character did because I needed them to for the plot, it worked out for her, maybe it'll work out for me.
Or
It's
it
a
gives you
good
a
kind of
vehicle to like say the things that you wish you could have said,
yes,
and that's, I feel like,
absolutely.
very empowering.
So the book that I just published this week on Tuesday is called Worth It by Amy
Oh,
Nielsen.
congratulations.
Yeah, she's doing great, and she's actually a literary agent, so I'm very excited that she chose Wild Ink, like, it's a huge thing. But she was pregnant when she was a teenager, and her parents kicked her out of her home. And this story is that, but it's fictionalized.
Mhm.
So, she is able to I mean, and this is her magnum opus. She worked on this for decades because it was such a
Yeah.
hard thing that it needed that time to come to fruition. She needed that time to work through what happened to her.
And it
And
changed it.
yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. And as we grow up, we kind of see things in a different light as well. And she's working all of that into it. But yeah, the book is so, so good because it does tackle teenage pregnancy. And uh, j- especially now with, abortion being banned
Yeah.
and things like
Yeah.
that, this is her message. Like it's okay. It's hard. It's terrible what I went through, but I'm okay, and my daughter's okay, and
Mhm.
she's the best thing that ever happened to me, and I didn't see it then, but I see it now. And so she's just very much kind of honest in what she's saying, and she's trying to give hope to people who feel as if they have no hope. I
Oh, I
mean,
love that. Yeah.
a teenager being kicked out of their home while pregnant. I mean, I just it's and that's terrible to me, but it happens.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Oh, I appreciate that perspective. I can imagine. That's awesome though that she was able to, because I know what it's like to sort of have a book living inside of you for years. And you're like, I
Mhm.
know that I need to write about this. And then, I'll go to write it and I'll get a little bit of it. And then I'm just like, I don't know what it is. It's too heavy, or it's just, I don't know, like I want to get away from it. Like you can avoid it. I've done that with art too. Like I'll start painting something and a lot can come out in that creative expression because that's what it is, right?
Yeah,
And then I'm like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah,
I just have to like take a break from this painting. I don't know why. Like that
yeah.
sometimes
So
there's something there.
there is honestly, that is why we have critique partners and accountability partners for
Mhm.
authors. That basically like, okay, well, I mean, I guess you have to have 3 chapters written in a month, you better get on it, things like that. Did you write today? Someone to message you,
That's
did you
awesome.
spend just 15 minutes? Did you write for 15 minutes? Just
Mhm.
someone to keep you on track because honestly, there are those times where you're just like, gosh, I would just rather just sit and veg and look at TikTok videos. I don't want to have to think. But if you can hit that zone of writing, if you can hit that kind of like, I know you and I talked about this already, it's kind of like a meditative zone
Mhm.
with writing, the words start to flow despite you,
Yes.
despite,
Because a lot
despite,
of it is that's why they call it writer's block. Like
yeah,
it feels like a mental block, and that's why accountability is so important. And to have that gently, because it's like to understand that it really is something that people are going through in their
mhm,
brain, in their nervous system, in their body to
yeah.
overcome. But if you can work with somebody that can kind of pull it out of you in a way that's really like productive and loving,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, it makes a huge difference,
Because
and
once you start, it does start to flow, and you're like, "What was my
yeah.
problem?" But it's like
No.
sometimes sitting down to do the thing,
Oh
we
my
make
gosh.
it. Yeah.
100%. So it's like, I don't know if anybody follows Gabino Iglesias on Twitter. If you don't, I suggest going and following him. He's the Bram Stoker winner for this year, but he just always says, "Sit your butt in the chair and write.
Yeah.
Just sit your butt in the chair." And like that's sometimes all you need. Like, all right,
Let me just do it, I've had to, like, sometimes just I'll be like, "Okay, just get in front of," because I work all day in front of a computer, so sometimes wanting to sit in front of my computer again, even if it's for my
right,
stuff, like, it's hard. I'm like, "I don't wanna see a screen," but I'll be like,
right.
"Just sit down, just open it up." I, like, literally talk myself through it, and once
Yeah,
I start, if I can start, and I'm just like, just sometimes I will write, I don't know what to say, you know?
right,
You just
right.
start typing, like, it does start to flow,
It
you know?
starts to flow. The one thing, it might be that you're not ready to write that particular
Exactly,
scene,
that too. Yes.
And so yeah, I often, like, type something like, "Come back to this later," and highlight it so that I find it
Mhm,
later and go on to the next chapter,
mhm.
and sometimes that's all you need. So
That's what
maybe
I like about
ready
the
for
book
that
that
specific part.
yeah, I agree. I've sort of there's been different parts of my story that I've written at different times. It'll be like, "I'll come back to this, like, let me go to another chapter."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But also, like, if you don't wanna sit in front of a screen, I actually have, some authors who, dictate to their phones. They don't
So,
sit
yeah,
at
I've been thinking about that. I'm glad you mentioned
yeah,
that because I do talk to text sometimes.
Yeah.
So I don't
And
know.
you have to make sure to put in your punctuation and things like that. But a lot of people get a lot of words in quickly. Like there are some authors who write a book a month.
Yeah.
I can't.
I don't know how
But
they do
there are some authors who write a book a month. And that's how they do it. They're dictating. So they might go on their walk and they're speaking and
Oh,
or
okay.
maybe they have a long commute and they're speaking the entire way.
Okay. I'm gonna
I
try.
could, yeah, definitely.
'Cause
So it
even
works.
if you got it all out, then you could go back and edit it. But at least you got
Yeah.
yeah.
You've gotten well, and remember the first time that your first draft is when the author tells themselves the story. Okay. It's not for public consumption at that point. It is you telling yourself the story. The editing is basically the art of making it consumable for others.
Mhm.
So it's important to, when you are, when you say edit, get through the whole book and then go back and edit. Get the story out, get the words on paper, edit later.
That's
Both are extremely creative, just in different ways. So,
Do you like when you write, do you edit it yourself or do you have somebody else do that?
this is what I suggest. I think every author should edit themselves at first. So this is the process that I propose. Okay, and this is what I do. Write the book, and yes, all first drafts are total crap. They just are. There's. I don't care if you're Stephen King. All first drafts are crap. And then what I tell people to do is put it away. Don't think about it for at least a month. Okay. Because what happens is when you are so close to a project, what is in your mind is what you think is on the paper, and that is not the case at all. So our brain plays tricks on us and we'll say, okay, yeah, you explained that perfectly. It makes total sense. But it doesn't. So if you put space between the manuscript and you
Yeah.
can see things with fresher eyes.
Yeah, I
So
like that.
that, yep. And then go through the revision process, go through all of that. And then I suggest people, even before they submit, they should go through beta readers.
Mhm.
And beta readers are just basically people in your life who would read it and give feedback. And I always say 6 beta readers. One of those beta readers has to be tough as nails and is not afraid to offend you. You
Yeah.
need that. But then one of the other beta readers needs to be the yes person who thinks that everything you do is gold.
Yeah, you gotta have
Because
both extremes.
have to have both. If you don't have both extremes, like I feel like
You're
you've
not
done
getting a full
nothing.
picture. I get it.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean that
And you
yes
can't
person
take it
can
real personally. Like it's just
no,
feedback. You can still take or leave, you know. So,
right, right.
because you're not
Well,
gonna please
no, yeah,
everybody. So
right, right. Well,
ever.
and the thing is about that is that, I always cringe, and I say it, but I always cringe a little bit when I hear authors call their books their book babies,
Mhm.
because what that means is when it comes time to edit, they're going to be hard. They're
Mm.
going to be hard to convince that they need changes because it's their book baby. How
Yeah.
dare you critique my book baby? You kind of have to separate yourself from it a little bit. You have to get out
Yeah.
of that. So, and I say it too. I get it. But yeah, we got to get away from the book baby thing. But then after that, I actually do have an editor with my publishing company, who edits everything and works through everything. Now, for Wild Ink, we have several phases of editing. So they go through developmental content editing first, where we look for large structural errors such as plot holes, character development issues, setting issues, timeline issues, things like that.
Nice.
And then after that, you go to kind of a line editing where it's like syntax, looking for grammar issues, looking for, the
Kind of like
continuity
boys.
issues, things like that.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, and that usually goes back and forth. And then we go through proofreading after it's laid out. And so it's like it goes through several rounds. And the relationship between author and editor, like they love each other and they hate each other simultaneously. And it's funny, it's
Yeah.
hilarious because we use track changes and comments. And so people will they'll write back, why are you making me do this? Because it's good for the book. It's like these back and forth conversations. I hate you. Well, I love you. So it's like it's so funny to read these comments. It's just so funny.
That's
So,
cool,
I mean,
actually, like that kind of relationship, because it really does challenge you to grow, but also to like, it's hard for us to accept critical feedback about
it is.
something that we are trying to bring to life, like, and we have this sort of vision, but we don't know everything. And that editorial process is important. That feedback is important, but
It is.
it's definitely a place where I think there's a lot of like that feedback is really necessary.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It is, and that's why I think, like, traditional publishing takes a long time. It can be anywhere from a year to 2 years before a book comes out.
yeah.
Um, and I think that that time frame, while it's necessary just because of the time frame of publishing, I think it's good for the author because by the time we get into the editing of a book for an author, they're already working on their next book baby.
Hmm.
So there's a little bit of removal from,
Yeah.
like, obsession over the book that we're editing. And that helps a bit if an author is like, "Okay, it's done. On to the next one." So,
I'm really excited for the book that I'm working on. I'm not going to talk a lot about it because I'm still in the works in it, but I'm excited for it to be a collaborative
yes.
project. It feels like a collaborative community baby.
Yeah,
And that does allow me to have a little bit of like I'm a little removed from it because I'm very much aware that it is something that everybody's creating together. But that's how
right.
I want it. Like that's how I want to do. That's why I do this podcast. That's why I want to operate in the world that way, in that
Yeah,
collaborative, like community building way.
right.
So it's been really fun. And thank you for your,
Yeah.
feedback and being a part of that journey for me too.
Yeah.
So
I think that community projects are good. I've done around 15 anthologies through several different publishing companies and through a college press. Um, It definitely is. You have to nurture that creative spirit. So I always suggest create message boards for just those authors, so that they can bond together and kind of
mhm.
pump each other up and talk about each other's work and things like that.
Yes, I created a Facebook group recently and it's just been really nice and I shared, I want to share the creative process of putting this all together because that so much is representative of what the project in and of itself is.
Yeah.
So like
Mhm.
I had shared, some of the choices that I made about publishing and, I'm sort of looking at self-publishing and I'm going to be looking for like a
Yeah.
graphic designer and a marketer and these things. And then now I have authors in that I'm calling it the author circle jumping in saying, "Oh, I
Yeah.
have a friend who does book graphic design. Let me
That's
give you their
perfect.
number." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Yes, this is what I want." Like,
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
so
That's good, and so you're helping I mean, by
yeah.
doing that, you're helping, the visual arts as well.
Mhm,
You're helping book formatters get their foot in. I mean, all of this is just
it's the web.
in a lot of ways for everybody who's taking part, it's like published, like, it's something that can go on their publications list, which helps them in the future.
Yeah,
For the graphic designer, it gives them something for their portfolio, which helps them in the future.
I love it.
So because with publishing, like, you do have to have a track record, and so opportunities like what you are putting together gives these people a track record that if they try to, you know, submit a novel to an agent or something like that, they have something to show that they've already been published, it's been a good project,
Mhm.
It helps everybody,
Thank you for
definitely.
saying it's a good project. I'm very hopeful. I have to say
Yeah.
though, I'm really excited about it. So if the energy of that I feel about it, is any indicator of, I mean, it just every time I talk about it and what feels possible, I just get like all lit up inside and that's it. And I feel like that's what I love to see. Like, and I keep hearing, we rise together. So I love the web that's being created in this collaborative way. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Every author needs a tribe. Every author needs a group of people who are supporting them. And without that, it's hard to just get ahead. It's really
Mhm.
because so much so with books, the best marketing practice is actually word of mouth marketing.
Hmm.
And with the social media, social media is actually word of mouth marketing, and that
Mhm.
is the most powerful thing for authors to have is, the social media presence and talking to people. So it's yeah,
So
it's
we
good. And the
talked
thing
about the power of telling your story. We also talked about the impact on it. I want to make sure we hit on some of these points because we talked a lot about books being cathartic. Um,
Mhm.
so the power of telling your story, the brain and fiction versus reality. I want to talk about that.
Right. So now I love neuroscience.
Me
Like
too.
I
Oh my God, I'm
oh
such a nerd, but I love it.
yeah. Yeah. So apparently the part of the brain that your brain doesn't know if something's fiction or not. Like, cognitively if something is fiction,
Mhm.
but when you're
But
in
it
the
felt
moment,
sense
the
in the
feelings,
body. You're still
yeah,
going through it. Yes.
the
Yes.
the feelings are 100% real. And I
Mhm.
guess on brain scans, like MRIs and things,
Mhm.
they'll talk about like fictional characters and then real characters. It's the same exact emotional points that light up in the brain.
Right.
So your brain can't kind of like it, but you don't feel it,
Yeah.
that these fictional characters, that they're real. They're real.
Like, for instance, okay, like the amygdala gets lit up, that's like a fear center. There's heavy emotion in there. So
Yeah,
when I was a kid, some of my first like novels that I read, R.L. Stein was one of my favorites, which is funny because I went on to marry a Stein, spelled the same way. But
yeah.
my first like series, I mean, I used to love those and they were scary.
Yeah, they
Like at
are scary, yeah.
12,
In
11,
a
12.
fun way. Yeah,
They
but in a
are,
fun
but, like, some of them were, like, picking up a hitchhiker who
way.
could have been a murderer and, like, all this stuff, but I think that as a kid, it allowed me to process, like, that it was lighting up that fear center in my brain to, like, help me process fear
Right,
that I was, like, holding in my body, like, I
right,
was
that makes
drawn
sense.
to horror movies and things that
Yeah,
lit like that, so.
yeah, and it lets off some sort of brain chemistry, just like
Mhm,
the stress of it and everything that kind
mhm.
of I think sometimes it puts things in your real life into perspective.
Yes.
That makes sense?
Mhm.
Yeah. So I think that that's helpful, and I think that's why, like, a lot of us Gen Xers got hung up on Flowers in the Attic, those
Oh
books,
god.
because
Ugh.
they're terrible. I would never let my child read them.
Ugh. I watched
And
that movie when I was, like, I don't even know, 5 or 6.
woo!
Oh, it was
I
heartbreaking.
like, so many of it's like a whole, like,
Oh, I'm so
I don't
glad you mentioned that. That's a good one. That
yeah.
one
I
stuck
mean
with me.
yes. No, absolutely, and it's like, how many books? There's, like, so many books that VC Andrews and then she passed away, and they kept her brand going with other authors writing it,
My mom loved
and
her.
just yeah, I just devoured them, and I think that what it is you can see that other people are going through horrible circumstances, and not that you want to, like, compare your life and be like, "Well, I'm better off than them," but, like, we were all better off than those children, and oh gosh,
And it allows
you know
you to process grief. Like, just like how
yeah,
you watch a really sad movie and you cry a lot and you're like, "Why am I, like, really crying?" Like, sometimes it's just a vehicle
yeah,
to stimulate
yeah.
that thing that
Well
you need, you know?
yes.
Yeah.
And the crying relieves stress, you generally feel better after you cry, it makes perfect sense, like,
Mhm.
woo! Yeah,
Oh,
flowers in
Flowers
the
in the Attic. Damn. It's been a long time since I've seen that. I wonder what that would be like, because when you revisit something at a different stage, I mean,
yeah,
I watched that when I was very impressionable, and I was
yeah,
also going through a lot of stuff in my own life and, similar themes, but definitely not to that level. Like, that was
right.
awful. Um, uh,
Right, it is awful. Yeah. Well, to me, so
but
so
what a
growing
great
up, my
writer,
parents would
right?
only allow me to
What a great
what?
reader to, like, be able to evoke that. I mean, that, like, we both like, as soon as you mentioned that, we both had a
Yeah,
immediate, like, reaction. Like, that's awesome.
like a very visceral reaction.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's funny because, like, I was raised in a household where I was only allowed to read classics for so long.
Mm.
So my first modern books were flowers in the attic. And it's so funny because my first memory of reading is reading Flowers in the Attic, and I'm imagining old times. I'm imagining, the Victorian era, because that's what I was allowed to read. And then suddenly there was a McDonald's. I'm like, people are still writing today? No, my parents only let me read Jane Eyre. I mean,
I remember, I'm gonna say her name wrong, but Jodi
Picoult.
yeah.
Mhm,
Uh,
mhm. Yeah,
her books, I don't think any one of them has not made me cry. Like she's just really good at tapping into
yeah,
like that
yeah.
emotion.
She's great because yes, she is a wonderful advocate against book banning. Like, that is something she is consistently speaking out about,
Mhm.
and yeah, yeah, and we have a book banning anthology coming out,
Oh,
October, I
okay.
think, where it's just basically, the person who's planning it is a librarian, and so everything's set up with the Dewey Decimal System, and all about parts of your life or stories that you would tell that would be banned in today's world by, like, places in Florida, you know?
Mhm.
And so it's all about, like, inspecting, like, why, I mean, Handmaid's Tale is banned, To Kill a Mockingbird is banned. So we wanted to explore that concept of banning and allow an anthology to go through that just encapsulates those issues.
I love the setup of that with the Dewey Decimal System. That's clever.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm excited about it.
I'm excited about that.
I
And that's
haven't been
a topic
shown
I'm
it.
very passionate about because I do think,
Mhm.
I mean, I feel like we should be having choice and yeah.
Yeah. That's what I like to say. I think it was Stephen King who said basically, if a school is banning a book, the kids should go read it immediately. Find
Yeah,
out why.
yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, I don't think that happens, but
No. No.
that would be cool though. Unless it's
Yeah.
on TikTok or YouTube.
Right, right, right. Well,
They are
that's
a
what
different generation of kids though.
they are. They
So
are. I mean, when the world is banning, Toni Morrison's work, everybody needs to read Toni Morrison and find out why, because her work is very important, you
yeah.
know? Yeah.
That is interesting though. That brings up like I'm curious about what you think about younger generations and reading books versus
Mhm.
like the way they consume is so different than how I mean, we got a lot of stuff through TV too, but it was very different.
Yeah, yeah. I think that attention spans are shorter,
Mhm.
just because they can like, if they're not into something, and that's why, authors have to change the way they write, more shorter chapters, uh, uh,
Oh no.
clear statements, more action-packed role. Modern day writers cannot utilize that level of description because your readers are gonna zone out.
Mhm.
And it's fine because that makes for faster paced, storytelling, which is good for them. But it also kind of tests your chops, a lot more dialogue. Pacing is a huge issue. How you make someone read, like making sure they read faster, by doing certain like different components, between how you use dialogue tags, how you show action, how you actually do describe while keeping someone's attention.
Right.
It's all changed. We cannot write the way the Victorians wrote and expect anybody to read them, or at least the youth of today read them.
Even in
But
the
at the
way
same
that the words are presented on a page matters anymore.
right. Right. Oh, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, you have to really pay attention to accessibility, when before people weren't really paying attention to that. What is accessible to different learning patterns, things like that. That's incredibly important. Um, the other thing that it left my brain. Do you edit?
Yeah. Sure. We can. I do have somebody that does that for me.
Left my brain. It went boop, and it was coming out, and then it was gone. No,
I
it's
mean,
fine.
that happens to
It's
me
fine.
all the time. That's like I'm looking at
So,
my notes.
yeah, and there's different ways of, handling the attention span. So like now there's Kindle Vella. And Kindle Vella is an author, is something that Amazon gives us where an author can upload a chapter a week and the person just downloads that chapter and they buy tokens
Okay.
and they can purchase just a chapter at a time. And so it makes it less, overbearing than like a whole book. It's just
Mhm.
one chapter at a time. And I think that usually in the romance world that is taking off, but if that took off for teens, I think we would have a lot more teens who read. But I mean, like you remember, you were probably I was in my early 20s, but when Harry Potter came out, everybody suddenly everybody was a reader. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It really prompted kids to start reading again. I feel like, Divergent and all of those books, like they turned kids into readers. So we need another segment, another type of book that is like that, that is newer, that understands the attention span of the kids now, that can kind of write towards that. And so I think that we can get another generation of readers, like the Harry Potter readers, if we can figure out that part.
How to talk to them. I liked
Right.
the Diary of a Wimpy Kid series in the
Yeah.
way that it was sort of this drawn, like sort of it was
Right.
almost like a comic, but not like it
Right.
you know what I mean? And it was
Right.
easily consumed.
There was a lot of separation.
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly it. And so that's why I think, a lot of parents are like, "Oh, no, we don't want our kid reading, comic books." And I tell them, "No,
Yeah,
like, if your kid
actually,
wants to read comic books and they will sit down with a comic book and read, get them comic books.
mhm.
Get because
There's
that
oh, it's a series, The Babysitter's Guide, maybe? Um,
yeah,
it's in that format, and my daughter was all about that.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
had to get used
exactly.
to it because that really wasn't like, to me, I didn't like the way that that was organized because I like the
Yeah,
baby, but
right.
actually sitting with her and reading that kinda got me into that, and I was like, "I can see
Yeah.
why she likes this," and she's very creative, so and actually, I can't wait, I wanna write a book with her, but because she's
Oh,
also an illustrator, and her drawings, I mean, I'm biased, but, like,
yeah.
they're very, emotive, like, there's
Oh,
emotion in there, and so
yeah.
I think that you can really convey that, in the
Yeah.
midst of a comic because you have the picture that
Yes.
there's so much more communication happening.
Well, I mean, there's a visual communication that
Mhm.
is so incredibly important, and because we are dealing with TikTok generation, they are
Yeah.
used to imagery with their storytelling because that's all TikTok is. It's storytelling. No matter what it is, it's storytelling. It's the same thing. So, visual acuity is incredibly important for communication. So, I see nothing wrong with having images in books. I think it's great. So,
Yeah, I talked to her about that one day, and she was excited. Because I love the idea of I'm such a helper, and of course,
yeah,
like, similar to what with your books, like, I wanna reach a younger audience and help them process their emotions.
yeah.
So I do think that teens really struggle with
Mhm.
finding the words sometimes
Right.
to put to the deep stuff they feel. And
Right.
I want
Yeah,
them just like you, like, I want them to not feel alone in that and to have some sort of place that feels safe to process.
exactly. And the other thing is with AI, okay, and I teach college level courses and I can tell 100% hands down when one of my students uses AI. Okay, 100%. It doesn't feel quite human. It's kind of like that uncanny valley that you step into with AI. And I think that human written books, I think are a good kind of outlet for combating that
Mhm.
because you can see the beauty of words. They're not just pumping out words to get to answer a question, to get to a page count. Da, da, da. It's human. It's communication at a soul level, that AI can't do. And so I think that the more novels that kids read, they can begin to see. okay, well, this is AI, this is human. The human is so much richer. The human writing is so much richer than anything that AI could put out. And so
Yeah,
I think it is important. We need to get books in kids' hands because that's the only way we stand a chance about everything going to AI, you know?
yeah.
So,
Although I do think that AI can be a resource, but I think that we can't lose our humanness in
humanity.
that
Yeah,
process, right? Like it's
right.
a
So
tool. Yeah.
the school that I'm teaching for right now, this semester, they put out kind of recommendations for how you can ethically use AI
Hmm.
and how you should not use AI. So you shouldn't use it to generate your whole paper. But
Right.
if you are trying to figure out an avenue for, figuring out your thesis statement, figuring out what direction you want to go with you can ask questions to get clarity in your own mind so that you're better able to write. The problem is the
It's such an,
generating.
yes, you're reminding me because that is such an interesting dilemma that we didn't have
Mhm.
before, which is like somebody could basically write an entire paper and not have written any of it.
Yes,
Wow.
absolutely 100%,
Yeah.
and I've gotten a few of those, and it's like, professors can tell, we can tell. So, I mean, yeah, so I think that just the humanness, the soul, the empathy that writing builds, it's something that AI just doesn't have, you know what I mean? And
Well,
so
and
we
even
have
on a, if you just, and I don't know how you feel about energy, but like on an energetic level, right? Like
Mhm,
I would imagine that something that was written by AI would kind of feel empty. Like it would, there would be like some sort of lack of feeling there and an emptiness. Whereas something that is written by someone, that's why it matters what energy you put behind what you're writing,
right?
because that's the thing, like we talked about in the beginning, feeling
Mhm.
your character, like that's going to come through your writing, the
Yes,
energy that you're putting behind it that somebody else is going to pick up.
yes, absolutely, 100% agree with that. So we'll see. I'm hoping I think that AI may give the opportunity for some people to become more creative. You know what I mean? If AI is if we can handle AI correctly and have them do the small tasks that take up our time that keep us from being creative,
Yes,
we may see a
I agree.
surge of humanities, you know?
That's
How
my hope.
amazing would that be? Yeah.
I
So,
really like, I'm not, I don't, I can see, of course we live on a spectrum. So there are going to be people that are going to take the lazy route. There are going to be people that are like, I refuse to use it ever. And then there's a whole mess of people in between. And I think it does matter, how we go about using it. I think there are lines to walk in anything like that. Um,
right, right.
so it'll be interesting to see what we do with it and how it develops.
It's the same with Wikipedia. Before AI, I would have students copy and paste a Wikipedia entry. And it's like, so I had to start saying, you can use AI or you can use Wikipedia as a jumping off point for your
Mhm.
research. You just can't copy and paste and you can't cite Wikipedia. You need to go to the bottom of the Wikipedia page and look at the footnotes and go to their sources and cite those. But it's hard because students see an easy way out, copy and paste this
Sure.
Wikipedia article. I'm done, but again, professors can
I've
tell.
been there myself. And then you learn about copywriting and you're like, oh, that's right, I can't do that. I actually write this in my own words.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Copywriting is, oh my gosh, it's a landmine. It's a landmine. So, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
is there anything that we didn't cover? Is there anything that you have coming out that you wanna plug?
Oh, okay. So I did, yeah. So I have Worth It that by Amy Nielsen that came out Tuesday.
Okay.
And then Old Palmetto, do I have that here? No, I don't have it here. I took it to my office. Old Palmetto Drive is a lovely kind of sapphic tale, but like for teens, so it's very clean. It is a tale about a girl who is sassy New Yorker whose parents get divorced and she finds herself moving to the Everglades in Florida and
Oh,
how she
fun.
copes with that, how she finds love. And that is a funny, funny book. It's a good, funny book. So that's coming out. But we have on Wild Ink Publishing, if you just search on Google for us, we have a ton of books coming out. we actually have a ton of stuff coming out at Halloween time. We have 2 horror poetry books,
Nice.
and we have 1 anthology of horror that's
Okay.
coming out. So Halloween's going to be a big time for us.
And for any writers that are interested in working with you, you have a submission process, right?
Yeah, we have on the website, we have, traditional submissions. Now we are traditional publisher. We are not like hybrid where the, author pays to be published. We only make money when we sell books and you get, a portion of the book. So the author doesn't have to pay anything, but it is extremely selective, because we tend to get like hundreds of submissions a month and we can only do so many, because
Okay.
we only have a small staff. We
It's a
can't
good
do everything.
problem to have.
Yeah, yeah. So we probably publish about 20% of the books that come to us. But we also do offer self-publishing help, which we don't publish these people, but they come to us and say, I really need help with editing. Can you quote me a price for editing a book
Yeah, I'm
this
probably
large?
gonna be hitting you up at some point.
Yeah. Awesome. So yeah, they do that, or we need a book cover. Can you please just help me with the book cover? So whatever the self-publishing author needs, we just focus on that. We don't do like whole publishing packages where the author pays up front. Um, but we do recognize that self-publishing is a very viable path, and so many people don't yet, which kind of blows my mind because I think any self-publishing author who is able to manage all of that at one time, through editing, marketing, all of it, hats off to them because it is a lot of work. So we do respect the self-publisher at Wild Ink 100%.
And if anybody's looking for you, where do you want them to find you? Because I
Oh,
know you're
why?
on TikTok and Facebook and all the places.
Yeah, I'm on all the places. Generally Wild Ink Publishing. You can just search for me. And then the website is wild-ink, publishing.com.
Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you. It was so good to talk with you. I'm
Yeah,
so
it's
glad
great.
that we connected on this topic because it is near and dear for me.
Yeah, I think anytime we can get people being creative, that's a good thing.
Yes, I think it's good for all of us.
Yeah, it is. Definitely. All right.
Thanks for joining me for this episode of All the Things.